Hey everyone, this is Steve and Johnny from IDP Trends, and we are talking some training camp jargon. We are going to help explain what is going on in training camps for the NFL, talk about players that are being hyped up, and explaining what that does for your fantasy team, whether they're overhyped, maybe you should believe the hype. We are here to help kind of explain and get you guys ready for your fantasy football season, whether it be dynasty or redraft or even best ball to help you guys out. So before we begin, again, I'm Steve at Average Joe's. You can find me on X, AVG Joes underscore FF. And you've got Johnny here at Johnny freaking F1 on X. So make sure you guys follow us. Also, hit that subscribe button as well to get more content from us. We are here to help you guys all season. Now, Johnny, let's get away with some promotions we got going on.
Yeah, right now from the IDP Plus network, we have a promotion going on with Trophy Smack. Right now, it is redraft season. There are drafts coming up. You might have already drafted already. So if you haven't, get ahead of the game. Check out Trophy Smack. They have a great selection of not only trophies, but they also have for sale right now. The link is in the description. You can get a Trophy Smack draft board. They brag it's so deep you will never have to do another write-in player again. They have all the player stickers you will need for your upcoming live draft. So make sure to check out Trophy Smack in the link below.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I mean, I've seen the trophy you've got going on. I unfortunately don't have my trophy. I lost it last season, but Trophy Smack has been amazing. So make sure you guys are checking that out. So we're going to kind of start this off. Look, it's been 2 weeks now, I think, with training camps going on. The Hall of Fame game had just ended. Preseason getting ready to really start and ramp up. So now this is kind of where those players that are really fighting for a position, or some of the rookies that you guys saw coming into the NFL, are really getting hyped up a little bit too much. So we're going to talk about players that I think are a little overhyped right now. That way to help kind of fizzle out, maybe let your league mates draft, and that way you make the smart moves. So the first player I want to mention is Jameson Williams. I get the hype. I think we all do. There's a lot of elite talent for him. But until this season, he proves a full year, he just can't stay on the field. That is my biggest concern with him. It's not the talent, even though he's had some issues with drops and he kind of misses assignments. He doesn't run his route as efficiently or as crisp as it should be, especially when you're playing against a route technician like Amon-Ra, who is just an elite at that position. Jameson just can't stay healthy at this point. And I hate putting that stigma, but unfortunately, some players just have that. They just have, whether it be tissue issues that are going to happen. You know, you got hamstrings, you got things like that. But he's missed 16 games in 2 years. For me, I'm going to let my league mates go after him. They're going to believe the hype all day, because I'm not going to put him on my roster unless he's probably my last pick of the draft. And I don't mind it. I don't lose anything. But please just understand there's too much risk involved. We don't know what this offense looks like and realistically, we kind of know what this offense looks like. It's Amon-Ra, it's Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs. Those are your receiving threats when it comes to this offense. Everyone else kind of gets sprinkled in a few targets here or there. So unless this offense completely changes, which I don't see change at all, Campbell is going to use David Montgomery. They're going to use Jahmyr Gibbs. And of course, his two receiving threats in Laporta and St. Brown. Whether Jameson plays a full season or not, I don't see the value in drafting him unless he's in your dynasty and you're in a deep league. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I'm kind of staying away from that hype.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man. I mean, we're talking about a team in Detroit, like you mentioned, those guys, Laporta, St. Brown, they got Gibbs. We're looking to maybe have 1,000-yard receiving year from him, as well as maybe rushing too. So that's a lot of touches going to those three players. And I just think that he's not somebody who in household name so much, but at the same time, I don't think he'll go last round. I think there's guys that are going to jump a little bit for him. So I'll let him jump. For me personally, if he was a high volume receiver too, the fact that he couldn't stay on the field, you said it missed 16 games in his first 2 years.
Yeah.
He can't stay on the field. And then he's not a high volume target guy either. So you're really banking on that 140-yard home run play. Yeah, I'm kind of fading Jameson Williams. I probably won't have many shares at all, if any, of Jameson Williams. So I'm with you on that, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I like the talent. I think he may have some good games here or there. He'll sprinkle in. He's going to be someone's waiver wire pick later on this season. But again, we're talking drafting. He's staying on the waivers at this moment until he proves a little bit more into the coming season. Another player that I really want to mention is Tyrone Tracy for the Giants, the running back. He's being talked up like crazy, which I understand, right? Barkley's gone, went to Philly. They bring in Devin Singletary. Singletary's never been a true workhorse, so everyone automatically assumes a backup is going to be a big play in this New York Giants offense. And it may be true. I'm not sure how true it will be because Singletary right now actually looks really good in camp. He looks great. He did show up really well last season for the Texans when he had to play. Yeah, he's not a big guy. He's probably going to share some time. I think it's going to be more of a 65 to 35 split share. It may change a little bit in this coming season. We're not really sure how it plays out. With that said, though, of all the running backs, I don't think it's Tracy that ends up being the guy per se. I think it could be Gray. And even then, I'm not sure how this offense really plays out. Daniel Jones is a great running quarterback who may actually have some strong value. They can use his legs quite often if need be. So for me, this hype of Tyrone Tracy, like again, he's not even a handcuff in my opinion. I don't think he's going to be somebody I'm even if I have Singletary, I'm not putting Tracy on my roster just to be there. I get the handcuff situation unless you have a really deep league, and even in Dynasty, I don't think I have seen many shares of Tracy on anybody's squad at this particular moment because no one knows how this Giants offense is going to play out. So for me, at the running back position, it's Singletary, and I think great, and then possibly Tracy. We'll see how things play out. But at this point, don't believe in the hype at all.
Yeah, I'm with you, Steve. I think you said it well. Good handcuff right there at best, but there's plenty other handcuffs that are better out there. Zach Charbonnet comes to mind. Even some of these rookies, even Jonathan Brooks with missing a couple weeks, Trey Benson. I think those guys are better, worthwhile handcuffs to own at this point. Like you said, unless you're in a really deep league. A lot of people probably expect Saquon Barkley's absence to cause a lot of touches, a lot of void in the offense, and that's true. But they do have Malik Nabers there, as well as Eric Gray, who you had mentioned as well. I do believe in Eric Gray too. So probably going to take an injury, and a lot of people might get carried away with the training camp hype about like Tracy's getting some love in the pass catching aspect. Devin Singletary's never really been that guy. And Tyrone Tracy might have a role on third down, but other than that, it's probably going to take an injury, like you had mentioned, for Tyrone Tracy to get his. And unless you're in a deep league, I don't see the need to roster at this point. We're probably not looking at him come redraft season unless there's an injury, of course.
Yeah, I mean, injuries obviously will change the whole landscape of everything when we're talking training camp. But just realistically, again, like you mentioned, if you're going to grab a second running back as like a handcuff, grab running backs that you know have had some value. Charbonnet, AJ Dillon. You mentioned some of the rookies that are coming into the league because we're not sure where they're going to play out. So yeah, I'd rather grab a player like that than having Tracy on my squad unless it's a really deep league. Now, as far as I'm going to mention the Bengals because I keep hearing Jermaine Burton, the rookie that was brought in. I know everyone expects him to replace Tyler Boyd and that is a good understanding, right? You've got a player that Boyd, man, he was great. He was a great slot receiver. You have Higgins, you got Chase. So I get it, having Burton as someone you may believe in the hype. But I've actually watched some training camp videos of the Bengals. Because right now Burton's in a spot where he's getting a lot more targets and a lot more opportunities because Chase right now is dealing with a contract situation. So with that said, these younger guys are getting opportunities, but Burton's not the guy you should be going after. It should be their other receiver who's been playing for a while, I think 2 or 3 years now, Andre Iosifas, who's been really their slot receiver, kind of played a little bit last season. He's been actually fantastic in this upcoming season so far in training camp. He's really the standout. So if you're going to draft a third wide receiver from this Bengals offense, which is understandable. The Bengals pass enough that Burrow is going to probably throw 30 to 50 targets to that third receiver. Maybe a nice little flex player here, there, or a bye week filler. Burton is not the guy. I understand the hype. Everyone gets that rookie feeling. They've just got to grab a rookie, right? They came into the league. They're going to be the new guy. Sometimes you forget about these guys who have been on this roster who've obviously kept their roster spots for a reason. So for me, I think the hype on Burton is too high. Again, in Dynasty, his value is a little different. He is somebody I would try to get some shares in because we're not sure what's going to happen with Higgins next season. But when it comes to redraft this 2024 season, I am staying away from Burton.
Yeah, you know what? This is a tough one too. And coming back to the Jameson Williams comment I had before is just like I think Burton's kind of like a deep threat right now. He's going to have to prove himself as far as getting that slot role. I mean, Tyler Boyd, like you mentioned, I mean, there's room for 3 receivers on that team. So I think that it's a good smart look to try to get that third receiver, but a lot of people aren't really penciling in Yoshi Voss as a potential filler for that role, and I think that's a mistake. I do think he has sure hands. He's been there a couple of years. He's familiar with the system. Burton might have his games, but I think they might be far few in between until we see some consistency there. And I think what was, as far as Yoshi Voss, he's a great replacement for Tyler Boyd in the slot. Even though he's kind of bigger, he's a little 6'3". It's kind of a big for a slot receiver, but he showed his versatility on that team. He's earned his spot, and I do think if he's out there in any leagues, if you're in dynasty leagues, he shouldn't be. You should definitely have Yoshi Voss on a roster, especially in deeper leagues. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to draft Burton. He's another guy who's going to have a lot of luster to him because of the potential, but will that potential ever come to fruition this year? So I'm with you. Redraft, I'm more interested in Yoshi Voss, and dynasty perhaps more in Burton, but it's probably, you can't bank on it happening this year.
Yeah, and you also have to take into account Yoshi's been what, 2 or 3 years into the league where he's had a rapport already with Burrow. He knows this offense, right? Because it's the same coaching staff. You're not changing anything. He's got an advantage already over Burton. His size, I like his size. Boyd was a big receiver for being a slot receiver. So again, I think his value is a lot stronger. I'm staying away from Burton. I know, I get it. I've seen highlight. Oh, Burton, like I've seen it. So just look at X. You just go through that. You're going to see all kinds of crazy clips. And I think sometimes we need to slow it down a little bit. I get everyone's excited for these rookies, but I would just slow it down. And speaking of a highlight reel, is somebody I have to mention. I know most people are probably not thinking much into it, but I'm going to mention Joe Milton for the New England Patriots. Now, I am personally a Milton fan. I know he's had some issues with, his accuracies. There's some concerns there, but man, if you're talking about a highlight reel, that arm on that kid is amazing. And he has actually done so far. The hype is because he has actually outperformed Drake May. Now, I personally have never been a Drake May fan. I was one that I was hoping the Commanders were going to draft Drake May and not Jaden Daniels, because I thought Jaden Daniels was the better quarterback coming into this league. I understand why people like Drake May. They put him automatically into the category of Josh Allen. Like they thought the big guy, he can run, he's athletic. Joe Milton's a big guy and athletic and way more athletic than Drake May and a better arm than Drake May. He just has some accuracy concerns. So the hype, I understand why some people like it. He does have those highlight throws, and he is currently outperforming Drake May, who is a very highly touted quarterback coming into the league. Realistically, it's Jacoby Brissett's job. I mean, I don't see him losing it. So for me, neither of these quarterbacks I'm going after in redraft. Now, of course, Dynasty Drake May is a different story. He's going to be someone you drafted early in your rookie drafts that probably have already been done. Milton is somebody I do believe you should have some shares. I'm not going crazy. I'm not trading for him per se, but if he's out there just sitting in waivers, he should be on a roster, because I think if given the chance, he might show up a game or two and, someone's going to go for him. But at the end of the day, the other thing is this is the 32nd ranked receiving core when it comes to overall talent. And so that's a concern. You do hear some of the hype of Javon Baker. You got, Polk in there, their new receivers. I do like DeMario Douglas. I think he's going to have a value. I'm hoping they put him on kick returns. I think his value will only increase. But other than that, stay away from Joe Milton. Appreciate his throws, appreciate his arm, but let's stop believing in the hype.
Yeah, I get it, man. It's tough, when you have somebody making those highlight plays on Twitter. Fans are going to be calling their name, and hey, there might be a reality of Jacoby Brissett. If your team's not winning, how can they justify you starting quarterback? So there might be coach talk of a different quarterback. Maybe Jacoby Brissett can't hold the job, but it doesn't mean it's going to Milton. Although, like I said, when you're making those kind of throws, it's tough to ignore. But as far as backup quarterbacks, I mean, I think that somebody like Spencer Rattler, he's somebody I'd rather prefer to roster at this time. I do believe that, like Derek Carr, the efficiencies, the deficiencies they've had in the Saints throwing attack. They also don't have great weapons there either. But I really believe the hype in Spencer Rattler, and that's somebody who I'd rather take over Milton. Milton has another guy, Drake May, to compete for. And I think when you look at Derek Carr and Spencer Rattler, I just think that the future is only going to be Rattler. And Jake Hayner's out there right now with his, unfortunately, skin cancer on his face. So he takes him out of the realm too. So I'd take somebody like Spencer Rattler if I'm looking for a backup quarterback with elite upside over Joe Milton at this time.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about it like off the screen. Like we were talking about how Rattler is somebody I'm a fan of too. I think if Derek Carr and the Saints team isn't playing well, and maybe they're ready to move on with him and his contract, Rattler may have an opportunity. And this team is, I could see the Saints going through a rebuild, and they've got get some of these young guys in, and I can even say that about Kamara. I think Kamara could be ended up traded, if depending on the record goes, and they rely on Kendra Miller the rest of the season. I mean, so I think I think their head coach is gonna be gone before that. I think he's gone by the midseason. I just don't see this team being successful. I like Derek Carr personally, but I don't think he's in a good position. This team is just, they're not built to win this year. And I think Rattler has looked really good. So yeah, I mean, I've got a few shares. He's sitting on my taxi squad and a few of my squads because I like Rattler, and I thought he did perform well. He looked good, at the Senior Bowl. So I was excited for that. Now, before we talk about the hype and what you should believe in, what are the promotions we got going on right now for us?
So right now at IDP Plus, we have a promotion still going on. Right now it's draft season. We still have this promotion going on for you guys. So if you're not subscribed already, go ahead and check out idpplus.com. That is our new website. It's no longer idpguys.org. It's once again idpplus.com. And you can get your first month of premium access for only $1. Make sure you use the promo code MOCKDRAFT at checkout for your first month, and you will get that for $1. Not only do we have great podcasts, great articles, we also have rookie rankings, injuries trackers, snap tools, premium articles, weekly finishes, and a new part of IDP Plus team is we have a new betting, IDP Plus Bets, a YouTube subscription, a YouTube platform for that dedicated to strictly betting. Myself and Axton, the Axeman, we're going to also do some betting IDP prop bets. So this is a great time for IDP Plus community. Great time for you as the listeners and viewers of this channel. And if you're not already subscribed, go to idpguys.com. I'm sorry, idpplus.com and get your weekly, your monthly subscription for only $1 when you use that promo code MOCKDRAFT.
Yeah, spend $1, get some knowledge, help yourself win, and I'm sure you'll continue that subscription going forward. And again, make sure you guys just subscribe to the channel so that way you can hear and watch our beautiful faces every single week to help you guys out. So one player I'm going to mention, I've got one of my favorites, which I'll mention last, but the first player I'm going to mention is Chase Brown for the Bengals. Another Bengals, I know, but Chase Brown is going into an opportunity where he could end up being possibly the number one back. I know they signed Zach Moss. I know Zach Moss had a great season last year, filling in for Jonathan Taylor, something that not a lot of people expected. But then Chase Brown's just kind of sitting there. He was there last season. He had showed a few flashes here or there when Mixon was, out. Now Mixon's gone, went to Houston. Chase Brown, I thought, assumed was going to be the running back one. And then, of course, Zach Moss gets signed. So I was a little upset. But with that said, I did grab quite a few shares of Chase Brown in my dynasty leagues. And I'm still pumped about grabbing him because right now he looks great. His receiving aspect has been continuously growing. He's getting better and better. That's one thing they're constantly talking about is how much of a better receiving back than he was in college, something that obviously you have to do in the NFL now. You can't just be that workhorse, and he has been a workhorse since college. The one thing that they're still hoping for, which again, this is what training camp's for, is to continue to improve on pass blocking. One thing that this Bengals team has had trouble is blocking for Burrow. That's why he's constantly hurt. And they're trying everything they can to get the best offensive line, but you still need a running back that's going to help put those pads against those linebackers, those edge rushers, and things like that. So that's one game that he does have to improve upon. And if he does, I think he ends up becoming the RB1. Now, I think this is actually going to be a true split backfield. I don't think there's a true RB1 at the moment. I think Chase will earn it over the season. but he's somebody that is being drafted super late in drafts because Zach Moss's season was so good last year that he's obviously the guy that everyone's going after. But I'm personally going after Chase Brown if I can in later rounds that I think end up being, I wouldn't say a quite league winner, but somebody who's going to provide a lot of points later on in the season. And you didn't spend a lot to get him. So I'm a huge Chase Brown fan. I think he has the best opportunity right now. And he's just got to improve a few things this training camp.
Yeah, I feel that, man. The potential is definitely there. I'm with you. I think this is a split backfield right now. Interested to see as training camp comes to conclusion, preseason games come to conclusion, where this backfield stands. Me personally, I will be a man enough to admit I did not see Zach Moss coming at all last year. I didn't buy the hype. I thought he was just going to be the starter and get a couple touches. I didn't think he was going to blow up. And maybe that's not the case, and he does well and it exceeds expectations. But yeah, you have Chase Brown, right behind you, on your toes, trying to come for that number one spot. And this is a guy who in college, I believe he had averaged 20 touches a game in his last season and final season in college. So I mean, the volume can be there. He was a little bit inefficient last season, but hey, it's a rookie too, and I'm sure Zach Moss wasn't the most efficient his rookie year too. So I mean, it takes a while to get going, but when he gets to work on that in passing yards and receiving options, man, he is electric. He's absolutely breaking tackles, very fast. So I think the sky's the limit. And maybe they signed Zach Moss as to have two backs. Sometimes you don't want to just rely on one back. Joe Mixon's departure was a big loss to that backfield. I think it was like over 20 some touches in the red zone. They are losing now with Joe Mixon. He got 20 plus touches in that red zone last year. So maybe Zach Moss is the guy at the goal line and a little bit of more of a floater. But I think Chase Brown, you can't replace Joe Mixon's abilities with one guy. So both of these guys should definitely get theirs. And I think Chase Brown has all the potential in the world. So in a world where Zach Moss had often dealt with injuries and he got pounded a ton last year, a lot of touches, maybe Chase Brown is healthy and looking good for this season. So I'm probably avoiding this backfield right now. I see hype from both sides, and that's kind of driving their draft stock up right now. But man, if you can get Chase Brown for a little discount and he does turn into be that RB1, electric upside. So I'm with you, Steve.
Yeah, again, I'm not going high, but definitely can draft one. So we're going to talk a couple of defensive players. I got Marshawn Kneeland. So Kneeland right now is in a position where I think because of what happened to Sam Williams, which is, unfortunate, he's now possibly in the rotation opposite of DeMarcus Lawrence, opposite of Micah Parsons. And Kneeland, second round pick, has the capital to have some strong value. Sorry, I'm sick and dying over here. But with Kneeland here, the one thing I want to mention is his size is good. He's not somebody I thought, I at least, again, from a Cowboy fan who tried to watch some game film on him as much as I could. I wasn't super excited at first. But then, again, training camp, he looks really good. Because I will give credit. This offensive line looks really good for the Dallas Cowboys, even though they lost, Tyrone Smith and, they've got some issues at center. They're still trying to figure out, but I liked Tyler Guyton. They got in BB Cooper. I like what they did. So with that said, Kneeland is somebody that I would say more in the dynasty realm, but in redraft, if maybe you got two defensive linemen, two edge rushers, however you scheme your IDP, I think has a little bit of value when it comes to some bye week fills, get injuries, because there's a lot of great defensive linemen. So don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying Kneeland's got to be a guy you got to go after, but the hype is real. Like, he looks really good. Again, he's like learning from a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence, who's a great run defender. So he's getting tackles, may not be the sack guy like he used to be early on in his career. So he's taking Kneeland under his wing, which is fantastic as a fan. And again, getting his pass rushing skills. And then you got players like Micah Parsons to help him out, which is fantastic. So having Kneeland in that role now kind of being force-fed into the first team snaps because of the situation that happened with Sam Williams, who I was super excited about. I was pumped for Sam Williams this year. And it sucks to see a guy like that go down because this was really his first year to have a true opportunity, just because of the changes for this defense. So it sucks to see Sam Williams go, but again, getting a rookie, which I'm glad they did. I hated it then, but I'm loving it now that they drafted him because Kneeland now gets forced into a role that he's going to get first team snaps. He's going to get, opportunities this upcoming season. And again, only strengthens his dynasty value. Redraft, like I said, it's a little bit tougher to kind of read it out. Because if you look at defensive edges and linemen and stuff, there's definitely a lot more players that I would go after before going into Kneeland's realm. But the fact is that he's going to get opportunities, and I'm truly believing in the hype because he does look really good against this offensive line. And so, again, learning from players like DeMarcus Lawrence, learning from players like Micah Parsons, I think is only going to help him get better for this season and beyond. So Dynasty, absolutely believe the hype. Redraft, I'd slow it down just a little bit.
Yeah, I feel that, man. And in IDP, especially if you're playing in defensive leagues, opportunity is key, right? So right now we're hearing about Micah Parsons dropping back more into coverage this year. Maybe that opens up snaps originally before the Williams injury. So that definitely helps right there, right off the bat. Then you have Sam Williams go down. If you were somebody who were banking on, like yourself, Steve, who were banking on him to have a big year, even if you were somebody who said, you know what, I think Sam Williams is going to try to replace what Dorrance Armstrong did last year. Now he's in Washington too. So, I mean, the stars are aligning right now for Kneeland and being a second round capital. I think there's no excuse not to just, let him run full reins off, give him the key to the position and see what he can do. And I think they're going to quite frankly need that. And whether it be he can replace that kind of production from those three players that I had mentioned who are kind of, Micah Parsons is most definitely still there and maybe on the upswing, back to his old role, which is great. But they lose Dorrance Armstrong to another team. Now they lose Sam Williams. I really do like Kneeland, especially in Dynasty. And I think definitely if you're in a deeper redraft, we've seen guys that are getting drafted right now. You're banking on the sacks. I think this might be a guy who can get you some quality tackle output too. So that's how I kind of like to play. I don't like to just bank on the sacks. And I think he has really good power, really good speed. So I think this is somebody who is definitely going to become a household name, if not already.
Yeah, he was definitely brought in to help with the run stuffing because clearly Dallas struggled with stopping the run last season. Something they've been having an issue for a while, which I think was a good move for bringing in Mike Zimmer and getting some actual linebackers. I know we talked about Overshown as somebody that we like, this upcoming season, who's looked really good in coverage, which is where he's had some struggle. So yeah, again, I like Kneeland. I'm excited to see what he does. Again, I wasn't super excited when the draft happened. You got to trust the one thing I will give the front office credit is they do draft really well, so I trust that Kneeland will turn into something very positive for this team. And it's a little bit faster than we had anticipated. Another player I want to mention, again, another defensive guy is Laiatu Latu, who is absolutely, the hype is real. Like even from college, coming in from UCLA, going to the Colts, which I wish he had gone somewhere else, but I think this is actually going to work out really well for him. So far in camp, he is absolutely going after Anthony Richardson, which is actually, I think, helping Anthony Richardson to get to become a better quarterback because Latu is not letting up at all. He is constantly in his face. He's constantly getting pressure. He's constantly getting sacks, and that speaks highly of him. And again, a rookie that has strong capital, a rookie that absolutely should be drafted in your dynasty, and a rookie that I think could end up being a pretty good redraft player. Again, a little bit later in drafts, just because I think they're obviously a lot better talent. But Latu comes in as a pretty strong standout that I think you can get at a later round in your fantasy that might turn up to be a really strong defensive end for this upcoming season and going forward. So
Yeah.
Latu has just looked fantastic. He is just constantly getting pressure. That's a really good offensive line for the Colts. Like they're one of the top ranked offensive linemen. So it's not like he's going against bums like this. He is absolutely a beast in this field. I mean, he's 6'5". Like he runs fast. He looks really good. I like what I've seen so far from him.
Yeah, and I've been in a couple IDP best ball drafts this offseason where Latu was number one, if not number two off the board already. Now we have Samson Ibukam, who is out for the season now. So it's only going to give him more opportunity. And like I mentioned before, opportunity is key. This is somebody who's already a big time player. And if he can stay healthy himself, he's due for a massive rookie year. So I'm with you on that, Steve.
Yeah, I like him. I wish he had gone to Dallas. That's who I would have loved, but it is what it is. I think he's going to be great for the Colts for a long time. So at least we don't have to play him every single year. Now, my last player I'm going to mention, absolutely believe the hype. I think most people probably do, but I think people were worried about where he landed. Is Malik Nabers. Like I am absolutely jumping on this bandwagon. I thought he was really close to Marvin Harrison Jr. when it came to comparisons. If you guys read any of my articles this offseason for IDP Plus, like I'm talking, they are so close to each other. I know Marvin Harrison's a little more refined. He obviously has a Hall of Fame dad, so he understands the game. He's really good. Malik Nabers is just ultimately talented. He is he is going to be a premier wide receiver. I don't know what they do in LSU to get these receivers, but I mean, the talent has been amazing the last few years. And so with that said, I understand why some people are nervous because of the Giants and Daniel Jones and this offense. But I'm not afraid to say that I think he's just going to be force-fed targets. It's going to be like that Odell Beckham style where he's just going to be – his talent's going to overthrow some of the deficiencies they're going to have in the offense and the quarterback play. I'm not a fan of the Giants, but I do think Daboll's a good head coach, and I think he's going to get this team in position as best as they can with what they have. Because I do think Daniel Jones does have some deficiencies that are going to be a struggle. But I think if they use Daniel Jones properly, they use him on bootlegs, they use him out of the pocket where he only has to read half the field, get Malik Nabers down the field, making the big plays that he can, jumping up at the highest point. Like I'm huge into believing that I think Nabers will be a premier receiver. I think he can end up being a top 12 wide receiver this year in fantasy because of the opportunities he's going to get. He doesn't have a lot of competition. And with that said, if he's falling in the second round, which I've seen a lot, I've even seen the third round, Malik Nabers is going on my fantasy squad every single time. Like it's just the opportunity. Just sometimes talent just wins. And I believe in the hype. And his so far, his highlight reel looks amazing this offseason. Another player in that same offense you can possibly talk about a little bit of the hype is Theo Johnson, the tight end. Now, when it comes to tight ends, there's a lot of great tight ends so far, more than we've ever seen. So Theo's going to be definitely for those deeper leagues. For those of you guys who got some lot of players to fill in your roster, or maybe got a 16-team league or 20-team league, which I've seen out there before, Theo might have a little bit more value, in those. But he's another player you want to keep your ear and eye on because he does. He just came off of PUP. He so far is getting a lot of first round, even though I thought Bellinger was going to be the guy. Theo's very athletic. He's a very athletic tight end, and so that always wins. So I don't know how you feel about these two, but Malik Nabers, absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm somebody who doesn't really believe a whole lot in the team in general in New York there. But if I'm betting man, I tell you what, it was interesting you mentioned Nabers. You talk so highly about him. I did a podcast with Axton initial one of the bets I mentioned, IDP plus bets. I did a podcast with Axton, and one of the bets I took, it was I believe plus 650 odds right now for Malik Nabers to be the rookie with the most receiving yards. His biggest competition, of course, you mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. And for me, I just think that he's going to get force-fed the ball. I agree with you. Couldn't agree more, Steve. And I think that for 650 odds, this is a great opportunity. And I think that, that Daboll's a good coach. And I think Daniel Jones maybe doesn't return to exact form, but it definitely is better than, what he's been talked about to this point in the offseason and coming into this year. So I think he's a little bit on the upswing, which I think Malik Nabers definitely will get force-fed. You don't have Trey McBride there. You don't have James Conner running the ball, even though Devin Singletary is pretty good at running the ball himself. So I definitely like this bet. I wouldn't bet my life on it, but for 650 odds, I'll take it for sure.
Yeah, and again, I sometimes you just gotta believe in the talent. And at the end of the day, especially if we're talking dynasty, even though he may have gone on a team that you weren't crazy about, he may be there longer than Daniel Jones. So don't forget about that. Like that's a good possible chance. Now, maybe Daniel Jones, because everyone knows if he doesn't perform this year, he's done. maybe something happens. Maybe he turns it up and has that amazing season that I'm hoping doesn't happen, but maybe he does. And now we're talking a guy who could be a top 5 receiver. Like that's the kind of talent that Nabers has. And it's crazy to me because you look at the top receivers and there's so many damn good ones. So it's tough. He could possibly crack it. I think by the end of this season, he's going to be a top 12 receiver. I think that's just how it finishes. I think his talent will just outshine the position and the opportunities in his coaching and, quarterback play. So I like Malik Nabers a lot.
I could see it.
Yeah, I'm absolutely grabbing him if I can. So those are my last few players I wanted to mention. Again, training camp is here. Enjoy it. Enjoy the highlights on Twitter X. Enjoy the stuff on YouTube. Don't beat up your beat writers for your favorite team. They're just producing the news, right? Coaches are always going to talk highly of their players. They're more critical behind the scenes than they are out there. So again, that's what we're here to try to help you guys figure out that hype, to help you guys with your fantasy. We don't want you to put a drafting the wrong players and then you blame us. No, we're here to help you guys out. So again, make sure you guys follow me. Make sure you guys follow Johnny. You got Johnny freaking F1 on Twitter /X. You got me, AVG Joes _FF. Of course, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you guys check out idpplus.com. And I thank you guys so much for enjoying the show.